Over the past couple of weeks, we've been building this 125cc turbo fuel injected drift kart. And in this video, I think we're gonna get it running with boost for the first time. Now, as you can see, we are missing our front mount intercooler piping. And that is because my good friend Bailey is currently finishing all the welds. I have the ability to tack it together, but I do not have the ability to TIG it together and make it look as good as this. So I'm leaving that part up to the experts, but we'll have the parts back later today. But we do have a couple of jobs left before we can get this thing started and running with boost. And the first thing we have to do just so happens to be my least favorite job on all the builds. And that is the wiring. Alright, so if you guys remember in the first video where I got the motor running with the EFI kit, I did have some issues with the spark, and I've actually figured out the problem. So when you get these EFI kits, they come with their own CDI. This is what sends the signal to the coil that tells the spark plug to spark. Now on the wiring that comes with the motor itself, it also has a CDI. When I removed the carburetor, I didn't remove the CDI from the stock loom. So what I actually was doing was sending a signal from the ECU to the CDI that came with the ECU, then from that to the CDI that came with the loom stock on the 125cc motor, and then to the coil and spark plug. And basically by doing that, I was mucking out the signal that was going to the coil, and that's why we weren't getting the correct spark at the spark plug. So I'm really excited to wire this thing up again and get it running with the ECU where we can control both ignition and fuel. So our first challenge is mounting all of this on the chassis in a way that doesn't look messy. And it's gonna take a lot of discipline from me not to muck this up and rush this, because my ADD always gets the better of me when it comes to wiring. So what I'm thinking is we'll take the seat off, and I'm gonna make a plate that basically goes here on top of the chassis. We'll put a riv nut on each side. The plate will bolt to this, and I'm gonna mount these to that plate nice and tidy up here. It's really the only place I can think of where we can keep everything safe. I don't mind it being exposed as long as it looks tidy. The whole thing's kind of Frankenstein looking anyway, so I don't mind a little bit of exposed electronics, but I just want it to look nice, tidy, and respectable, like we've actually put in some effort to make it all look good. So first things first, let's go ahead and make the plate. By the way, I know a bunch of you guys love the kart build, but I did just drop a video of our New Zealand adventures with the Night Ride crew. It's a wicked video. We absolutely thrashed the R32 over in New Zealand. I'll pin the comment to the top of this video, but if you could go ahead and give that video some love after this video, I would much appreciate you.
So we're back with our trusty cardboard template to get that perfect shape for our new wiring switchboard. We're just dummy fitting everything in this video, but we will end up painting all of our new parts in the final assembly video.
So doing a quick test fit with our plate, look at that. And I realized also this plate is gonna act as a scatter shield as well, which is one thing that you guys suggested, because we're putting boost into this motor and this thing's moving around in it. And my family jewels, I guess you'd call them, are gonna be right here. So if anything happens, the motor throws a rod or something like that, this is gonna act as a shield so that we don't get anything smashing into our legs or anything like that, which is pretty awesome. So we're pretty much hitting two birds with one stone here. But I've got the electronics kind of laid out where I think they're going to go on this. So for this guy, for example, I'm going to make a hole here so that this sits flat on the plate through, and then we'll connect it underneath and just have everything super tidy. And basically I'm going to rehash a bunch of these wires so that all of this is nicely mounted onto the plate. But I'm pretty happy with that. It all looks pretty sweet. So now we're gonna drill a couple of holes and actually start mounting the electronics to the plate so that we can figure out the rest of the electronics and how they're gonna run. We also need to make a battery tray for our battery as well. So that's gonna mount somewhere under here, back here. Man, it's all gonna come together super well. So let's keep going. So I'm pretty happy with how this is all laid out. I've got everything dummy fitted, bolted up, exactly where it's gonna sit, and I don't mind it too much. Probably the one thing that does irk me is this guy here, but it's really hard to get this thing looking pretty, I guess. But like overall, pretty happy with it. I have realized that I could actually drill a hole and have the key, because this basically clicks into where you drill a hole, and then have it so you can turn the key and everything as well. But now we need to go ahead and finish off our wiring. So what I'm gonna do is we're gonna make our battery plate now. So I've marked it out on the metal here. We're gonna cut this out and figure out exactly where we're gonna have the battery here, mount it all up so that we can start wiring everything up properly, tidying it all up, and getting it all ready so we can run this thing, which is like so freaking exciting. Bailey messaged me before and said he is currently welding all the piping up together so I can go pick that up a little bit later. So freaking happy with that. I'm actually enjoying this process more than I thought I would, which is pretty cool, but it's really fun when you start to do things properly and tidily like this, so it just takes so freaking much time. But let's go.
After cutting out the battery tray template out of our 3mm steel, I welded in a backing plate out of thicker steel before welding the battery tray in its final resting place. While I was finished the welding on our fuel tank that I tacked together in the last video, I got to work finalizing the wiring, which took way longer than I'd like to admit.
So while Woz is here finishing the fuel tank, I have been freaking wiring. And everything is pretty well dummied up now. Obviously I can't complete everything just yet because we want to make sure everything works first before we tie everything off and make everything perfect and beautiful. So as you can see here, it looks like a complete mess, but maybe less of a mess than we had when we started it the first time. But something really exciting that I can now confirm, we have in fact fixed our spark issue, which is so freaking exciting. And now we get full spark. Check this out. It's hard to see on camera actually, but basically we're getting like 3 times the spark that we were getting before, which is exactly what we're looking for. So I can confirm now that this is properly working off the ECU, which means we can control ignition timing. So while we've been hard at work, Bailey has dropped by. Unfortunately, we missed him, but he's dropped off our intercooler piping. And honestly, I cannot thank him enough for his insane work on these pipes. Look at this, man. This looks freaking phenomenal. I'm so stoked with how this all came together, especially because there were a couple of gaps here and there because, you know, my fabrication skills aren't top notch, but he dealt with that so nicely. Look at that, that's crazy. And that means we can now go ahead and seal up our boost system for the final time. So let's freaking throw it all together right now. I'm so freaking stoked. Let's go.
When we started this build, the goal was to go way over the top with the fab work, and I'm so lucky that I have people like Bailey who can help me out with this stuff. He absolutely knocked this one out of the park, and these pipes have really put the finishing touch on the turbo setup.
Holy moly, check that out. That looks absolutely unreal. Holy crap. Look at that. She's fancier than all the cars in the shop. Looks so good. Bailey definitely outdid himself with this. This looks so freaking sweet. And even just with the clamps added on and everything, it looks so much better now. That's officially our whole boost system sealed off, and I could not be happier. It all came together really nicely. So all the hard work we put in, this is the end result. Now the frame is definitely letting us down a little bit with the looks department, but don't worry, we're gonna fix that in a later video. And we are so close to starting this thing with boost for the first time, but not just yet. We have to mount up the fuel system on the back now that that's all sealed up. Put some E85 in it, make sure the timing on the engine is correct, and then we can push that start button for the first time. So let's get it done. Putting E85 in our fuel tank for the first time. We chose to run this thing on E85 because we have race cars all around the shop and we have E85 here all the time. We don't actually have 98 here very often, so E85 makes sense. Plus, E85 is actually safer for the motor. So here we go. Hey, fuel pump works. Good start. So we've finally reached a very exciting moment in this build because we're gonna start this thing for the first time with boost properly running through the motor, which is really exciting. And look at the setup that we've got going on here. So I have this air blower here blowing onto the motor because these motors are air cooled. And off camera, I actually have been dialing in the tune a little bit with this thing just so I can get it idling. I haven't actually properly revved it yet, but it actually blows my mind that this thing is live tuning. Like, it's actually pretty crazy. So I can literally tune this thing while it's running. Now, just a warning, I am not a tuner by any means. We're gonna take this thing to the dyno and actually get it tuned properly. But I know enough of what I'm doing to get this thing kind of running to the point where we can actually rev it. And the fact that it's on the 85 means it's pretty safe. I'm not really gonna blow anything up doing this. But obviously the one big thing with this is we do not have the oil lines to the turbo done yet. Wow, loudest birds ever. Do not worry, we have a wee jiggy set up. So here, I just have this pipe going up here, and all I do before we start it up is fill this up with oil, boom, and that keeps the turbo lubricated just while we run it up and kind of test everything out. So if you're sitting there behind your computer screen and you're like, yo Mike, don't blow the turbo up, don't worry, I got your back. Now one other thing we've got hooked up here is the boost gauge. Look at this, baby. Although this boost gauge seems to be pretty inaccurate because it's already reading vacuum and the motor's not even on yet. But I've hooked this up, hooked the lights up so that we can see if this thing is generating any boost even on idle. But now is the moment where we can press the freaking start button. I'm so pumped. Look at this, man. It's so good. All right, moment of truth. Everything seems pretty good. Let's hit the start button. Before we start it, we'll just chuck some oil into our little oil hose that we have going on. Might need a bit of a rev. Alright, so it runs. Hell yeah, oh, no. It turned off. Alright, let's go again. So for the past 15 minutes, I've been trying to figure out why it just stopped running and wouldn't run anymore, and I was getting frustrated until I realized it was out of fuel. So, which I guess is a good thing because it means that it was an easy fix. So now let's go again. I'm gonna show you guys how it builds boost on the boost gauge, which is pretty freaking cool. So check this out. Yeah. Well, I definitely call that a freaking success. We got over half a bar of boost. Actually, I'm gonna check Google because I don't know how many PSI that is. We are making about 7 pounds of boost just on idle and revving it, which is crazy. And it's not even properly tuned yet. You can hear it's like breaking up there, not quite where it needs to be. I'd say about 8 pounds of boost because that gauge is actually wrong. It's reading vacuum when it's not even seeing anything, which means it's probably more like 8 pounds of boost. On idle, just revving it, no load. That is crazy. And I don't know if you guys could hear it, but the turbo flutters. The exhaust is so loud that I feel like you won't be able to hear it in the video, but I can hear the turbo fluttering, which is so freaking cool because it means we can make a dose pipe for this thing and it will dose for sure. But one thing I'm thinking we'll do is put a muffler in this exhaust, just a wee tiny muffler, see if we can quieten it down a bit, because I would love to hear the induction noise from the turbo and everything while it's spooling. And I guess that's the proof of concept right there, that this is actually going to work. And man, the intercooler pipes, they look fantastic. Everything has come together so freaking well. One other thing to note as well is the reason it's probably breaking up once it gets into boost is because the maps within the ECU, I've noticed, are only tuned for vacuum, so there's no tuning for positive pressure. We can do it in this ECU and we will make it happen. There's also the ability to do the two-step and stuff like that as well. So it's gonna be pretty freaking sweet. So this is like just the beginning. This is just getting it running. Once we take it to the dyno, we can actually start to dial things in properly and see exactly where we're at. I'm a complete amateur, so I have no freaking idea what I'm doing. But we've still got quite a few wee jobs to do on this thing. The oil lines, finishing the frame, painting the frame, putting everything together properly. But I'm just so freaking stoked that this thing actually runs and makes boost. Crazy. But that is the end of this video because I have to go home right now and edit it for you guys to get it up tonight. I don't know if you can tell, I'm quite sick at the moment, so I'm doing the best that I can to get videos out for you guys. But thank you so much to everyone who's supporting the build so far. Share it with your friends if you think they'll be interested in the build. Let's make this freaking thing go viral. I cannot wait to ride it for the first time as well. But thank you guys so much as always. I'll be doing another live stream in the next couple of weeks and we'll be announcing a big meet right here at the shop very soon as well. But thank you guys so much. I hope you're enjoying your weekends and I'll see you in the next video. You Poos. Makes boost, baby. 8 PSI. Crazy. Bye.